Hello, Sarah. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good, good. Thank you for coming.
Yes, I'm
This,
glad to finally get here.
yeah, we've been it's been months I've been trying to get you on here, but you've been
Yes.
so busy.
Yes.
So busy.
Incredibly busy.
Yeah. You just got married recently?
A month ago now. hmm
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, where did you guys get married?
In Fort Washakie, Wyoming. That's basically located within the Wind River Reservation in Wyoming.
Yeah.
So we had the backdrop of the Wind River Mountains. It was really pretty.
Yeah.
hmm
How was the ceremony?
It was beautiful. Everything went as planned, and the food came a little bit later, but that was fine. Everything went good though.
Later as in late?
Yeah, later
Yeah.
as in a little bit late, but it was okay.
Yeah.
It was a little bit hot. I somehow picked the hottest part of the day to do our ceremony, and I was like, we shouldn't do. I've done that, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad that went well.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah. So, for those who are watching, our guest today is Sarah Ortegon Highwalking. She is an actress, an artist, a dancer, a painter, an activist, a mother, and a wife.
Yes.
And yeah, on the activist side of things, you are also the executive legal assistant for.
The Native American Rights Fund. Also, they go by NARF, just an acronym.
Nice,
Mm-hmm.
nice. So, what have you been up to lately?
So lately, let me think. This past week, I actually performed a black light performance for Crowd Riff. They had a convention here in Denver, and so I performed with a dance troupe, Colorado Native Org. I invited them to come and perform with me for the black light performance, and what that means is we get dressed in our regalia and then we perform under black lights, and the white on our regalia kind of pops and it kind of creates a different viewing. I don't know if you've ever been to a powwow.
I have been
Um,
to many.
okay,
Yeah.
so it creates a different experience, I think, and a different viewing of. Basically, it's like watching the regalia dance without the person in it. So it's kind of a cool way of viewing the powwow circuit. So I actually came up with that idea a few weeks ago, or a few months ago, and so we performed that, and then I actually did a keynote speech the day after, and that was talking about tourism and the views of Native people on tourism and equity and inclusion. So.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What are the Native American views on tourism and inclusion?
So I always kind of pause on saying that all natives view things the same way I do. I just want to put that out there that I am Native American and I am one viewpoint, but I'm not all. um, and the way I see it is tourism can be an extractive industry, and it could be um, of course, everyone wants to travel and experience different places in different areas, but it can also be very extractive for the original people located within those areas, to the point of where they're having to move outside of, like, Native Hawaiians are having to move outside of Hawaii um, because they can't afford to live there anymore. And then they have the big um, hotels that are being built, taking up a lot of realty space. And so my viewpoint was saying, I kind of related it back to the buffalo, and how um, in the 1800s there were 30 to 75 million buffalo on the plains, and then the transition from I can't say it any other way, white people moving westward, um, basically the population went from 30 to 75 million down to 325 buffalo. But I was also talking about how the buffalo practiced diversity, equity, and inclusion by its very existence. And I was talking about how even the footsteps of a buffalo help the soil aerate it. And then sometimes they lay down and they create these wallows, and those wallows fill with water, and then it creates a home for amphibians to grow, and then water water for other animals to come and drink from. And so we lost a lot of that when the move towards colonialism kind of took over, and then we lost a huge part of who we are as natives. But we are reclaiming it. But I just wanted them to be aware of the history of what tourism has done, and I wanted them to be more cognizant of their effects when they do travel on the locals located within those areas.
Yeah, what are some big, I know when I went to, like when I go to Moab and I go to the Grand Canyon, there along that route, leaving Denver and going through Moab and the Grand Canyon and then coming back down by Mercer Verde
Yeah.
National Park and all that, that's pretty much, I mean, almost 100% of that is like native lands.
Yes.
A lot of it is
Yes.
along that route. So is that some of the areas that you would be talking about?
Yeah, a lot of those areas. And then I know that like in Mesa Verde, a lot of the pueblos actually relocated because of the lack of water. In my mind, there would be no other reason to relocate out of their homes that they carved into rock. So, you know, there are natural things that happen, but there are the human effects that come with travel. And so it's just really good to be cognizant of the history and even connecting to the area that you're in, because I believe that sometimes within the tourism industry, people are just there to take a photo and to just be on the land, but not to be a part of it. They don't understand, like when you're visiting the ocean, there's different types of waves, there's different types of times when it's high or when it's low because of the moon, and those are the things that the Indigenous people understand within those areas. And maybe if people traveling were more cognizant of these things, they would connect even better and have an even better time, even if the weather's not the way they wanted it to be. You know, if they're sitting in the rain and they're like, oh, I wish it was sunny. But there's an appreciation for the rain when you're Indigenous, especially when sometimes there's no rain. So those are just things that I wanted to share on my keynote speech.
Yeah. I mean, I've been around Native Americans a lot. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
my daughter's Native American.
Yes.
And well, half Native American.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've been around natives for many years. My two sisters are they're half Mexican native.
Okay.
It's I don't remember what tribe their father is. It's out of Arizona.
Awesome.
But I've been around natives since I was a kid, and I definitely see how natives are a lot more easygoing in the sense that, not in a bad way, but just in a way, like I feel like in our society in America, we're a capitalist society, so we're always chasing the dollar, we're always chasing something. Where I see a lot of Native Americans, they're just like, hey, take it easy, take it in, breathe, and it's surprising how patient they are with non-Native Americans. And the you know, even when I go through those areas, like I was talking about, going through Moab and the Grand Canyon and all that, and going through all those small towns, they're respectful, they're patient. When I look at them, I'd expect a little bit of shade, right? But they're not like that.
Yeah.
So how do you think Native Americans, and again, you're right, there's a lot of different tribes. Even there's some tribes were more affected than others.
Yes.
There's some tribes, especially, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but down in the Southwest were not as affected by the whole migration of the immigrants moving through the United States as the people that were on the plains that were in direct contact with those people.
They were affected.
Everybody's affected. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. I'm saying as affected.
That's kind of hard to say because they were also put on reservations.
Right.
And they did the long walk. The Navajo, the Dene people did the long walk, and so, you know, they lost a lot of people during that time.
Yeah.
But they were allowed to go back to the original home base. But then they did put enemies close to their location.
To cause conflict. And
yes, to cause conflict.
Yeah.
And that's the same within my reservation. I am Eastern Shoshone and Northern Arapaho, so I'm both. But technically, the government only allows you to be enrolled into one tribe. And so even if you are two tribes, you are only federally recognized through one. I'm federally recognized through the Eastern Shoshone tribe. And so my grandma was Arapaho, my grandpa was Eastern Shoshone, and my mom enrolled as Eastern Shoshone. And then the reservation that we have was first the Eastern Shoshone Reservation. That's what it was actually titled. And then after the Sand Creek Massacre happened here in Colorado, the Arapaho people were pushed from Colorado to Wyoming, the Wind River, and then also down to Oklahoma. So it kind of separated the bands of Arapaho. So that's why it's the Northern Arapaho, and the Southern Arapaho went to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So,
and then you have the Northern Cheyenne and the Southern Cheyenne
yes,
too, right?
Yes. And the Cheyenne were a part of Sand Creek Massacre.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what I was getting at is some people. Yeah, it's so hard, right? It's so dynamic,
Yeah.
like you mentioned in the beginning of this conversation. There's no one shoe fits all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at the end of the day, every tribe was affected for sure.
Yes.
What I meant was, I feel like some were just decimated beyond having that strength back. You know, I see that with some of. I don't want to. I hesitate to mention tribes, but I do see, like in the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes,
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of struggle with them building back things like the infrastructure and the schools and the culture and things like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So my husband, he's Cheyenne. He's Northern Cheyenne. And his grandma was from Montana. And she moved to Wyoming because she married his grandpa, who is Shoshone. And she spoke her language within their household. And then, of course, moving to Wyoming, no one to speak Cheyenne with. But I do feel like, and my son's name is actually Cheyenne. It's Ano, which means swift hawk. And so I feel like as long as you could hold on to that language, there's a way to rebuild the entirety of a culture. Because I feel like, you know, the less you speak your language, the less you understand in that viewpoint. Because they even say, like, scientifically, when someone speaks in English, or if they think in a different language, different areas of the brain light up, and it kind of makes you even act in a different way. So say you're speaking Spanish, you kind of, when I speak Spanish, I'm horrible at speaking Spanish. So I become like really introverted, and like I don't really want to say anything in Spanish because it sounds horrible. But like even that, like coming back to our languages and who we are as a people, it's hard because you don't want to be wrong and you don't want to be shamed. And that is prevalent within our cultures. Like, you're doing it wrong, you know, and it's really hard to come back to because it could be like an embarrassing part, you know, like I don't know this because I wasn't taught it. And so I think that's probably where we struggle too, is to be open and understanding of where other people are coming from. Like, I was born in Denver, and then I went and spent my summers on the res, and it was back and forth for me all the time. So I wasn't fully brought up on the res. And I think that maybe that's how a lot of people were born, but people from the res may look at me like an outsider, you know? And so those are the things that you carry as an Indigenous person.
Yeah, it's hard with languages too, because languages naturally decline. It doesn't matter whose language it is. I was watching something the other day on YouTube. It was some documentary talking about the state of humans, how it's going to be in like 10,000 years, 50,000 years. I mean, like, who knows how accurate you know they are. But one thing that caught my attention on there is they mentioned languages and how they naturally decline, and they went off into that, and I never knew that, and they just said that what happens is people just drop off things that they don't really use a lot. Like, you'll build a language and it gets to a high point,
Yeah.
and then people will make it easier for themselves to start dropping stuff off.
Okay.
And I can see what you're talking about. Some of the elders kind of being critical of the younger generations, being like, hey, you're not doing this right. And they're like, well, we're just adding a little twist to it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and that's even, even with English.
Yeah.
Like all the stuff I hear, like my niece and nephew say, I'm like, what? What does that mean?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing with, it's every language.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people just tweak them and they just change them for their comfort or make things quicker, easier, faster.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
A couple of years ago, I went to visit a friend in Montana. He lives in Whitefish, which is just west of Glacier.
Yeah.
And then I don't know the exact location, but I know that there's a reservation to the east of Glacier. Okay. And when I left there, and this was 2 years ago, when I left there, I traveled. I stopped for gas on a reservation, and they took my name and my phone number for COVID.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because I was talking to my friend who lives up there about it, and he said they're super concerned because COVID was killing older people, and the concern was that the elders would die off who knew the language, and they didn't feel the language had adequately been passed down, and therefore it could wipe out the entire language.
Yep.
Which was like a crazy thing to hear. You didn't think of, but yeah, all of the eastern entrances to Glacier National Park were shut down because of that.
Yeah.
I think they're still wearing masks on the reservations.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I went through Arizona and all that when I went to the Grand Canyon a couple of years ago, and then we went again. I don't know if you remember when I went. I don't remember when I went. I think I went this last fall, and they were still wearing masks. Yeah, but then they had some of the highest COVID cases I had heard.
Yeah, it actually like ravaged some reservations, the Navajo reservation, pretty bad.
Yeah.
But I also think that that's because of the lack of water. So you kind of have to all go to the same area and refill your water. And so, of course, when you're going the same area, you're touching all the same stuff.
Where are they getting their water from?
I don't specifically know a lot about the Navajo res.
The Colorado River goes through there, I think.
Believe so.
Yeah.
I believe so. Yeah. But there are certain areas where they go and refill like big vats of water and then take it back home.
Probably have like a water treatment facilities and stuff, different places.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the horseshoe, it's that horseshoe bend. That's actually, I think, on the Navajo reservation.
Okay.
So you actually have to, it's not a national park.
Yeah.
That's a separate thing. You have to pay the Navajo tribe to get in to see that.
Oh, nice.
On the Colorado River. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So they're getting a little, piece of the pie there.
Yes.
Yeah, which is good.
Should have got all of it. Just kidding.
Oh, don't kid.
Yeah.
Don't kid.
Yeah.
I'm an advocate,
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's funny how a lot of people are going to hear me say some stuff and just, be like, oh, he's a traitor. But I mean, I see things for what they are. I mean, I'm my lineage is Scottish. So,
Okay.
I mean, a lot of us that are Irish and Scottish, we see things in that same way.
Yeah.
Because those people were colonized essentially by the British and stolen from and raped and pillaged, and it's not the same.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's one white person doing something to another white person. They're going to be mean, but they're not trying to wipe them off the planet.
Yeah.
Like they did the Native Americans.
Yeah.
But I think what I want to say and what I'm getting at is definitely I think people should have a respect for Native Americans. Just if for any reason, because this was their home and you came here and now you live here.
Yeah.
And if you're privileged enough to live in this country that is a great free country on the planet, and it is, don't forget, like, hey, when you not just have respect for Native Americans, but have respect for everybody who was involved in the process of this. I mean, there was Chinese people that were here, or Asian people and Chinese people that were here working, and everybody came. There was black people that were slaves that contributed to this, and just kind of everybody had a piece of building what we have now. But one group in particular that was made up of many different tribes they lived here.
Yeah.
I'd be pretty pissed if somebody like came to you see my backyard. I don't know if you pulled up, you see my backyard. If somebody just moved in with some tents, we see that everywhere in the city and everywhere underneath bridges and stuff. If people just moved in my excuse me. If people moved in my backyard and just said, I'm taking this shit over, it's mine, I'd be like,
what?
yeah, I'd be kicking their ass out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it definitely. So how do you, going back to the language thing and stuff like that and the culture, how do you, with the youth, how do you keep the youth interested in culture? What do you think is key to that?
That's really a hard question to answer.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah, and I'm still trying to figure out how to keep them involved and to keep them. I think one way is to introduce ceremonies to their lives and show them how individually special they are through the ceremonies that they go through. And my husband, he sundances. He has family with the Lakota, and he sundances in South Dakota. And I've seen a few beautiful ceremonies, like coming of age ceremonies for girls. And the way the ceremony focuses on that one girl during that special time of her life, I think helps create just a love for the practice of that tradition, but it also integrates the girl more into that community. And then the elders are aware of that girl because they're assisting with the ceremony. And then the younger girls are seeing this girl come of age, and I would hope that they would want to go through that same ceremony. And I think that that's one way to keep our kids interested in who we are, is to help them feel special, through their family lineage, and to just teach them ceremonies. Whereas, you could always tell a kid, this is what you need to do, and then they could either rebel or, do with what they're pressured with. But when you make somebody feel loved and valued, that's, I think, one way to kind of point someone in a better direction.
And a part of something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something where they feel accepted and loved.
Yes.
Yeah, I always say I don't have culture myself because my parents were kind of wild and they didn't really raise me, and they did whatever they wanted to do, and when you have that, you don't have culture.
Yeah.
Your culture, I think, comes from your parents and your mentors and your elders and your older siblings, and yeah, it comes from your family and your community in general.
Yeah, my dad, so my dad was a preacher, and my mom and dad had 12 kids, and I don't know if I would call that a culture. Like, it was the way in which I had to be raised, and I'm not sure if that's the way I want to raise my baby. It was pretty much forced, it was a forced way to be. Like, I had to wear skirts. My dad preached the Bible, and nothing against the Bible or anything like that. It's just not something that pulls at me when I hear stories. So yeah, that's just, it's hard when you're not guided that way from a child, I think, too. But I do see the special ways in which our children are valued in different cultures. And like you said, our families are our culture, but it's kind of hard to see my family as my culture, the way I was raised anyways. And, I have 6 brothers, 5 sisters, and not all of us are close. So.
Yeah, I think it's hard to get culture just from one person in your family. That's why I stretched what I said at the end there to community.
Yeah.
Because if it's just like, I can go yell at my kids all day, you're gonna be like this, you're gonna do this, and then, but at the end of the day, if I don't have their other siblings, if I don't have their mother, their grandmother, the extended family, the whole community, and even cousins, even friends of our families that kind of share the same values as us, If you don't have that community, I think that one person, they could take you off track too.
Yeah.
And they could not give you the full picture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think the community is important.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you see, I mean, when you have a community like a lot of communities in Native Americans, when you kill and you try to suppress the leaders in a community, which, you know, thank God it's been a few hundred years. So now you're starting to build back.
Mm-hmm.
But until it affects the culture.
Oh, yeah.
Until you get to that point where you have those leaders back in place.
Yes.
And then you can have that system and that culture that's strengthened by those leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you see with the black community, I don't know what to say. Corey said I can't say. He said he's not an African American, so hard to say things, man. Everybody has an opinion. My buddy Corey was on the podcast. He says I'm not an African American.
Yeah.
So it's hard to know what to say.
Yeah.
But the black community, the African American community, they were, you know, decimated more recent than the Native Americans. And so they're still trying to build back their leaders.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that could happen to anybody. Anybody.
Yeah. And I want to point out that Natives haven't stopped the way in which the U.S. government, how they treat Natives, has not stopped.
Yeah.
It's still in place where we are fighting for the very few resources that we have. Like when it comes to pipelines, or even us utilizing the water rights that we have, because technically whoever's first has the first right to the water, and so that should be Native Americans. But without a treaty to enact, there still are Aboriginal claims to water, but it's just so complicated, like standing water versus running water versus evaporated water versus rainwater. So there's just so many ways in which the U.S. government has complicated the simplest of matters because they want to control it. It's wild.
Oh yeah. So the systems, like governments and systems, even if right or wrong, they'll change things to make it to where they have the benefit.
Yes.
That's anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
That's everywhere. And I'm sure you guys go through that a lot.
Yes, a lot.
Yeah, they're like, well, I don't know, that type of dirt right there, that's not what we agreed to.
They're like, we amended it actually, and you had no say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, obviously you guys are still going through things with all of that stuff. I know that pipeline, what, DAPL?
Yes.
Yeah. What's going on with that today?
It's still going. It was pushed through with Trump. He allowed it to start flowing, and it's been operating for the past over 4 years. It's been operating, and it has leaked a few times already.
It has?
Yep.
Yeah.
It has.
Wow.
Yep. And it's operating without an easement, without it being basically okayed. It's still operating basically illegally. So
how? I guess I'm trying to look at this from a couple different perspectives. I know how the natives feel about DAPL, right? It's going through tribal lands. It's there's a risk to contamination.
fresh water sources. Not just for natives, but everyone down.
Yeah. So just for everybody.
Everyone.
But at the same time, I'm sure natives would agree that you need some type of fuel source, right?
Well, so I think there's a certain way in which the oil and gas industry has created a dependency on them. Whenever there's a different way of using energy, it's been fought against and then stomped out using the oil and gas money. And so I do believe there are other venues and ways of utilizing even the sun as a way, solar, and then there's wind. And I know there's a lot of issues within those industries as well. Bird migration and other issues like that. But I do believe that there is a way to create energy that won't kill us off eventually. Because we are already seeing water rising in Alaska, and it's affecting the indigenous people up there because they have nowhere to hunt. Their original caribou have nowhere to go, nowhere to migrate, and it is affecting us. Like, even these past couple years, you'll walk outside and you'll see smoke everywhere, and that's because of the issues that are created through us utilizing the gas and oil industry.
You mean the smog, like in the city?
Not even just smog, like whenever I'm like, if you're driving through the mountains, it's just smoke from Canada because there's a huge fire. It's just the fires that have been happening because of the way the temperatures of the earth have risen.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's imminent. It's happening now. It's not happening, 10 years, 30 years, or maybe even when we're dead. It's happening now,
Yeah, it's escalating too.
Yes.
I seen something recently where they said, I don't know how many states in the United States this last month were like 10 to 20 degrees above average.
Yes.
I was like, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Right now we're almost about ready to hit October, and the first week of October is going to be 80s.
Yep.
And here in Denver, which isn't record breaking. I think the record is, I looked it up, it's like 90 degrees. It was like in 1850 something or late 1800s.
Yep. But when it's consistent, that's when it makes the difference.
Yes,
Yeah.
when it's consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even that record in 1800s or whatever, that might have been like, the rest of the days might have been like 65 or 70, and then it was like 90, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not consistent. Yeah, you're right, it's the consistency.
Yeah, last year I was playing golf until December. I didn't even have to take a break because of snow. Yeah, like mid to late December.
Actually, that brings me to the renaming of Mount Blue Sky. So Mount Evans was renamed to Mount Blue Sky like last week.
Really?
Yes, it went through.
Nice.
They voted and it was renamed. And the day it was renamed, it snowed on Mount Blue Sky.
Nice.
I just thought that was beautiful.
Wow.
And we do believe that there are mountain spirits that communicate to one another, and that's what brings the weather. So
Nice.
that was just something I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Congrats.
Thanks.
Who helped that pass?
So I can't say it correctly because I've never heard it, but it's the Mestiche. I'll have to share it with you.
No, that's all right.
It's a coalition.
People can look it up too.
Okay. It's a coalition, and it's made up of the Northern Arapaho and Cheyenne tribes that were working to get the name changed from Mount Evans to Mount Blue Sky. And it was a 3-year process. I wasn't part of the on the groundwork that people have to do to get these things done. I created a painting because that's what I wanted to happen. I created a mural in front of Patagonia, and and the night before I started the painting, I had this dream of huge, enormous dolls in the mountain landscape, and so that's what I painted. And then I crossed out Mount Evans with red paint, kind of like showing the bloodshed that he allowed to happen. And then underneath I painted Mount Blue Sky. And so that was just something that I wanted to happen. And then it got a lot of traction. And then the Mechistihe coalition contacted me, and they asked me to create their shirt. And so I made their shirt that they are now selling for their organization.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. About the pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
Great answer, by the way. I myself am an advocate for nuclear power.
Okay.
Because I think it's much cleaner.
Mm-hmm.
It's been proven to be cleaner. People freak out when they
Yeah.
hear the word nuclear.
Yes.
But the technology has advanced so much
Mm-hmm.
that if something was to happen in a nuclear power plant, the damage that'll be done is like almost zero.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not an expert in it,
Yeah.
but it's way, way cleaner than using fossil fuels.
Yeah, like I used to work for Colorado Rising, and their whole mission is to shut down Suncor in Colorado because of the amount of pollution it creates within the city. And I learned that one oil well, the amount of water waste that it creates is thousands of gallons of water, and that water can never be used again because the amount of chemicals in that water. Even if it was to evaporate into the air, it would just rain down acid rain. So they keep them in containers, and the containers that the water's kept in, no one monitors them. So if those containers start to crack and break, who's monitoring them?
Yeah, they just bury.
Once the oil pipeline is done, they're like, all right, we're done. We're out. Peace out. Whoever's living around those areas.
Oh, yeah.
It's not my problem.
Yeah, waste gets buried all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then what are you going to do? You can't dig it up if it's leaking. And if you do dig it up and you want to relocate it, you're going to have to relocate it to somebody else's land.
Yeah.
So.
Or even the ocean, it's just really sad to see.
Yeah.
The outcomes.
Yeah, can't shoot it to space. You can't get rid of it. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, solar, wind, and nuclear are really, really good options for energy. Nuclear's coming a long way. Yeah,
I'd have to look into it. I don't really.
Yeah, I'm not an expert in it, but the stuff they're doing is amazing. They have those particle accelerators. I forget where that one is at, Michael. Do you know where they have that one? I think I want to say Utah or something. I could be way off. But they've been learning how to do fusion of particles to get energy.
Okay.
And it's just amazing. It's scary at the same time to me, but I don't know a lot about it. But
I remember
it's way cleaner.
One of my brothers, who was really young, and he was always curious about the energy that was created between magnets, and how when you flip them around, there's this like energy that pushes them away.
Yeah.
He was like, why don't people use that for energy? Something like that.
Sure.
To create energy. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, it looks like it's called the Fermilab Particle Accelerator is located in Chicago.
Chicago?
40 miles west of Chicago.
How long is that thing? I think it's like so many miles the loop. It's like 5 miles or some loop. It's a loop, right?
Yeah, it's got to be a loop because the particles have to come back. Let's see. 27 kilometers.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's probably like 20 something miles, 22 miles or something, 20 miles, something like that.
Okay.
But yeah, they're working on stuff like that, which is amazing. Yeah.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. What were you saying about the accelerator? You said you might be 27 miles or
No. It said kilometers, and that made me think, oh, it's probably not the right one if it's in Chicago. It says this says for the Fermilab accelerator is 3.9 miles.
Oh.
Yeah, I thought it was about 5 miles. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so stuff like that.
Yep.
But yeah, better than a pipeline, right? Yeah.
And like everyone says, you can't live without water. So you could have all this innovation, and then without a clean source of water, what are you going to do?
Yeah, you can have all the fossil fuels you want.
Yep.
You burn away.
Yep.
But then what's that going to do? You can't live off fossil fuels.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a great point.
And I've seen like politicians be like, I will drink this water, and then you never see them drink it.
Or
like,
it's not the water.
It's not the water, yeah.
Then the person's in the background
Yeah.
like, here you go. Yeah, it's this dumb shit like that just drives me crazy. I'm like, that you don't have to drink water to prove a point.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a cup of water in your hand to prove a point.
Yeah.
Just let's prove a point by actions that really help.
Exactly.
Not a little play or show. Yeah. There was a video that you had showed us that I wanted to pull up. This was the protest when did this protest take place?
It was in 2016, I believe. Yeah.
And this is can you pause it for a second, Michael, just so we can give us some context before we start? So this is just to give everybody context before we start the video. So this was in 2016. This was at the DAPL pipeline.
Yep.
Where was this at? And what part of it?
In North Dakota. It was an area that the tribe had submitted as potential, not burial grounds, but traditional areas in which they practice ceremonies. They submitted it, and then the next morning, everyone woke up to this being done to that area from the pipeline.
So it was very spontaneous.
Yeah. It was out of the way, actually, from where they were digging previously. They like made their way to this area to dig specifically.
Yeah.
And I think it was sacred area that they had deemed sacred, the tribe, and then the the oil company just came in and bulldozed.
So was there still a conversation going on about that point, and then this, and it wasn't concluded?
That's correct.
And then this just got pushed.
Yes.
The workers were still going, and then
Yes.
obviously emotions were really high.
Oh yeah, emotions were really high that day.
Cool. Yeah, can you play it, Michael? Sorry. Thank you. Can you turn it up a little bit, Michael? So they already had dogs on site? Like they
Yeah.
were ready for Native Americans to show up, or what's the deal with the dogs?
I suppose they did.
Helicopters.
Yeah.
What was this like? They were
It
ready
was-
for all this?
It was very militant on their part.
There's a fight.
Yeah, there was
Obviously,
so
a lot of
much.
emotions.
Yeah, that brings back a lot of emotions.
And did you record this video?
Not this one specifically, just the beginning part where that guy gets tackled. I was there. I wasn't expecting any of this to happen.
Oh yeah, there's other recordings going
Yeah.
on.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the company.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they actually, it's private security. And so technically that's civilian against civilian, so that's illegal.
Who owns that land?
I believe it's original treaty lands.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you know for sure? it's
I don't
treaty
know
lands?
for sure.
Yeah.
I do know that the Lakota, they didn't sign over a certain portion of the lands, but the U.S. still took it over.
Yeah.
So I think it's original treaty lands, but you know how with treaties everything always got shrunk, and so I believe that that's a part of the areas where they try to shrink it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell that was like, I thought it was like very spontaneous, like it just happened. It looked like it was kind of just reacted to by the Native Americans, but it wasn't like something they planned out days in advance. It seemed
No.
like very reactive.
That was very, like, that was not planned out at all. I remember walking up to that area. We just heard about it in the morning. None of it.
People said, "Let's go."
Yeah, let's go. Stop
Yeah.
it.
But it seemed like they were ready. They had dogs and
Yeah.
helicopters. So were they
Yeah.
expecting, you think, protesters?
So the protest was going on before then.
Mm.
The protest was going on for weeks before then.
Oh.
Osheti Sakoan was already set up in that area. And
Gotcha.
so the protest was already going on. So that's probably why they were prepared. But that incident that day was not planned.
Yeah, that looked like a
From the
very
native
spontaneous,
side, yeah.
emotional
Yeah.
reaction to
Yes.
something there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, that's anybody. You see it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Things happen. One group
Yes.
doesn't agree with another group, and they, it's
And
just-
it's so wild to when the U.S. government is wanting to come in and take things, they expect us to be calm. They expect us to not be angry about it, and then they make it look like we're crazy for reacting the way that we do. But it's I think it's human to want to protect what is yours, or the area that we are limited to now. What is ours? Because it's kind of like traditionally we don't view land as something that we can own. It's there when we pass away. So how are you going to own it? That's the thought behind it. But we do have to protect it for our future generations. And so that's how we're viewing it now.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought that up because that's something that I seen recently about Manhattan. Manhattan was sold by the Native Americans. Sold, I'll put that in
I'm glad
air
you
quotes.
did that.
By the Native American. I don't know which tribe sold it. Can you look that up? I think it was for like $25.
Wow.
I think it was for like $25. I actually seen that recently on the Joe Rogan Experience. They were talking about that.
It looks like the Lenape.
Oh, Lenape.
Sold it for how much?
I'll look up the number.
Yeah, and from what I heard on the Joe Rogan Experience is that the natives were like, okay, you want to buy land?
$24.
Oh, my bad.
Wow.
You want to buy land? Okay, we'll sell you the fucking sky too. Like,
Yeah.
what do you want to buy? Shit that's like nobody can own it.
Yep.
In their minds.
Yes.
In the Native Americans' minds, nobody can own it. So yeah, we'll keep selling you everything.
Yeah.
But really, they got kind of bamboozled. on that.
Correction, I think it's the Algonquin. It says
Oh, okay.
The tribe.
I'll look
Yeah.
up.
What is it again?
Algonquin.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're right. Just that, and it's sad that we're like that. We put up fences, right?
Yes.
Even I got fences. I just put up a new fence,
Yeah.
and we have the borders, and this is mine.
Yeah.
You know.
And I remember reading like, I don't remember what book it was, but it was talking about, I think it might have even been a poem about how back in the day there was no stealing and there was no issues that we have today because that was provided for people, because that was one of our main things. Was when the hunters went out, brought back food, the first people who got to choose were the elders from that meat, and then it was given to their family, and it was a thing of sharing, and it wasn't like we're gonna lock up our teepee so you can't come in. It was always a community, close knit, and I don't know if that could happen in a bigger city like Denver, but it's just
Absolutely not.
it's just really sad.
I'm having deja vu right now.
Are
Not
you?
from something we talked about on the
Yeah.
podcast, but a conversation I've had with somebody
Okay.
before. Because I've had this conversation with people.
Mhm.
There's absolutely no way, like in big cities, that you can do that,
Yeah.
or in any big group of people that are also not the same people.
Yeah,
Because then you're going to learn.
that's true.
Yeah, you can tolerate each other,
Mm-hmm.
and you can live together as neighbors, and get along. But you're not the same people, and you're going to have different thought processes.
Yeah.
So there's no way for everybody to be cohesive.
Mm-hmm.
Until, like that documentary said about the languages that I was talking about earlier. One day they said we're going to have one race.
Wow.
They said it's like 50,000 years away, I think they said.
Wow.
By then we'll be really close.
Uh-huh.
Not necessarily one race, but all the traits will be mixed so much
Yeah.
to where you'll see lighter skin, dark skin, different color eyes in every group of people.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
It's,
see.
I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
Until we get to that point. We
Yeah.
got a ways to go, though.
Yeah.
We got to figure out how to get along until then.
And to have clean water until then.
Yeah, water is super important.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Did I just say water is super important?
Yeah, you said that.
Water.
You're making good points today.
Yeah. I'm not making excuses for myself, but I just got over pneumonia.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
yeah. First time, I never had pneumonia in my life, but
Me neither.
I'm not contagious right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm still like not 100%.
Yeah, I had it in college. I think for the same reasons you got it, was I got sick and just didn't stop doing, or didn't treat it, didn't stop doing anything. And like 2 months later, they called it walking pneumonia, which is
Okay.
basically like a cold that develops into pneumonia, which
Yeah.
my wife has had. Like, she's got really bad asthma,
Uh-huh.
so she's had pneumonia like 10 times because it always forms into that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it sucks.
I've never had it.
Yeah, but I'm good. But I say weird shit right now. Like, we need water. Water's important.
Another fact about the sale of Manhattan, adjusted for inflation in U.S. dollars as of 2020, it was sold for $1,143.
Oh,
That's
wow.
terrible.
That's
You
so
can't even
insane.
rent an apartment for less than like $4,000
There.
a month in Manhattan.
That's correct.
Yeah.
A small apartment.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. I'll give them $2,000 for it right now. Double their money.
That's sad.
Then I'll give it back to you guys. Don't worry.
Thank you.
I promise. I don't need it.
Give me money and then the land.
I'm good. I just need my outdoor grill, and I'm in a place to chill. I'm good. So yeah. So you mentioned the mural you did.
Yes.
You said that's outside of Patagonia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Downtown Denver.
Downtown Denver,
Yes.
Patagonia, the
Oh,
store.
I just saw that. I was there like 3 weeks ago, and I saw
Okay.
that mural, and I was like, it's
Yeah.
beautiful. It's
Thank
amazing.
you. Thanks.
What'd you see when you seen it, Michael? If you had to explain it, what'd you see?
Well, I can't break it down for you, but I do remember seeing a mural and saying that was beautiful.
Is it the one you said with the dolls?
Yeah.
in the mountain.
The mountain range.
Yeah.
The Mount Blue Sky.
Mount Blue Sky.
Yes.
Yeah. When did you do that one?
Last year in 2020.
Wow.
2022.
Yeah.
My son was just 3 months
Yeah.
when I
don't
did
know if
that.
I've seen that one. But you're right, Michael. There's a lot of murals downtown, and I see them too, and I'm like, oh, that's cool, and then I forget what it was.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I've seen that one.
Yeah.
I'll check it out next time I'm down there.
Okay.
Yeah. So what other art projects are you doing?
So I was just awarded with the the Women to Watch at the National Women of the Arts Museum in Washington, D.C. So I am currently working on a few pieces to put into that exhibition. And there are several other women who will be there as well.
And that'll be in 2024?
Yes, in
Right.
April of 2024.
Yeah. And it's going to be in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
We're at Washington, D.C.
The National Women in the Arts. Yeah, there it is.
Oh.
Yeah. And so I also wanted to include in there the Sand Creek Massacre and the whole reasonings as to why we wanted to rename it from Mount Evans to Mount Blue Sky. And then the Council of 44 was a council of chiefs. And then underneath that, you'll see the names of some of the chiefs that passed away in the Sand Creek Massacre written in cursive.
I have not seen this mural.
Yeah.
No.
Yep, and majority of who were massacred in the Sand Creek were actually women, children, and elders. And afterwards, a lot of people don't know that the 700 troops came and paraded the body parts of the Cheyenne and Arapaho people through the streets of Denver.
Yeah, because didn't they ask the men to come somewhere to meet?
I believe that they had been hunting during that time.
They had been hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And then who was the one guy, white guy who went there, was really famous?
Shivington?
Is it Shivington?
Mm-hmm.
What's his name?
He's the one who ordered.
No, not Shivington. Okay, but he's the one who ordered. He kind of instigated
Yes.
that to go
Yes, he
and,
did.
and do that massacre,
Mm-hmm.
commit the.
Oh, Silas Soule?
Silas Soule.
The one who stopped his troops.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's the one who reported the atrocities that had happened.
Right.
And then he was...
he was later killed in Denver.
yes, he was later killed in Denver because he basically told.
Yeah, he was
the
looked at
truth.
as a traitor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're not. You could be considered a traitor, maybe. I guess, in my opinion, if you're going against grown men or something. But
Yeah.
when you're going against women and children, that other group is they're cowards.
Yeah.
If you want to fight against men, okay, fight against men or whatever. But
And even at that point, the tribes had a white flag flying on the teepees.
right.
And they were told to go there by Governor Evans as a peaceful place to stay. And so there was, even if there were men located within that area, that was not something that the tribes wanted. So I think that's why it's listed as a massacre, because there was no fighting that was wanting to be done on the behalf of the natives that were there.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Mhm.
Yeah. Wasn't Virginia Allrunner's, my daughter's grandmother, you know
Mhm.
Virginia,
Yes,
wasn't her mom or something there?
I believe so.
Yeah.
So your daughter is a descendant of the massacre.
Survivor, in
Yeah.
a sense.
Mm-hmm.
A descendant, yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Speaking of murderers, and to all my Italian listeners, I love Italians. This has nothing to do
Me
with
too.
yeah.
I have nothing against Italy. Actually, I studied in Italy. I love Italy. so-
Yeah, love Italians. Love Italians. Not so big on the pasta. Fills me up, makes me too much.
Yeah.
But Christopher Columbus, it used to blow my mind. Even when I was younger, I was like, why is this guy celebrated?
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. The stuff that he did was nuts, and I didn't even learn until I was an adult
Same.
the extent of exactly what he did.
Yes.
Because when we're kids, we're taught, explorer.
Yeah, they even had us dress up like pilgrims, and I didn't know anything. Like, I was like, why am I dressing like this?
Yeah.
You know? I don't know. I was just trying to have fun with my friends.
Yeah.
And then I looked back. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the adults in our life. They're the ones that are supposed to be educated.
Yep.
They're supposed to be like, no, that guy's a bad guy. Let me give you some knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
But no, they're like, yeah, he's an explorer. You
Yeah.
know, he found this, he found that, he did this, you know, educated person.
Wasn't he actually sailing for Spain?
I thought it was,
He got lost, didn't he? And then he landed here on accident.
Yeah.
well, he's from,
Yeah, but who sent him? It was Spain,
he
right?
was, no, I think he was sailing for was it India? I thought it was India.
Yeah, he was searching for India, but who sent him on the voyage?
Oh, so he was funded by so I think he came from like, man, I don't even know. I know he's Italian. I think he was funded by it was either the Queen or Portugal.
Okay.
Was it Portugal? I'm terrible. I can sit here and say how much I hate him, but then I can't sit here.
Well, we know what he did.
This says he gained support from the Spanish monarchy.
Yep.
Persuaded King Ferdinand II and Queen Isabella I to sponsor his quest to find a westward route to China, India, and Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I thought he was going to India on that trip where he landed in North America.
The whole reason why he called us Indios, I had I'm not sure if you know who Moses Brings Plenty is. He's an actor in Yellowstone, and I've acted with him in a few plays. And he had told us this story, which I think is very interesting, that Indios, when you translate it from Latin, is people of God. Like, people, like, when he saw us like we were clean. There was no malice of us towards welcoming him. And so he thought that we were people of God. And so that's why he called us Indios, because India at that time was not called India. It was called a different name when he landed in America. So
I didn't know that.
yeah.
I know he was amazed by the physiques of the Native Americans.
Yes.
He said they were built and muscular and lean and like he was like, man, these
Beautiful.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, because that's the whole origin of the term Indian or American Indian, right? Because he assumed I did it.
Yeah.
I landed in India. Yeah, he was headed to India.
Well, that's the whole thing, is that it wasn't called India at that time. If you look up.
Yeah, that's
when
what she's
he
saying.
landed.
So maybe that came later.
Yeah.
Maybe he actually didn't call them Indians. Maybe that came at some
He
point.
did call us Indios,
Or
which
Indios.
translates to Indian, but also translates in Latin to people of God.
Oh, okay, but not because
People
of
in God.
India.
Yeah, not because of India.
Oh, that's a misconception then.
Yeah, I believe it is a misconception,
Yeah.
and that's what Moses Brings Plenty had like shared with me, and I take that forward when I think of Indian. But you know, natives, we all like to be called by our tribal names, you know, so that would be nice. But
it looks like, I don't know if this is the right name, but it looks like Hindustan.
yeah, see,
Yeah.
so it wasn't even called India at that time.
Correct. Yeah, in English is the term that's used.
Yeah, because you didn't even have Pakistan. Pakistan's a newer country as well. So that was broken up. So maybe that's when they made India, Pakistan. There's other places too, I think, like Kashmir and some of those other places. They didn't even exist. They're newer countries that broke out of that bigger country. Yeah. So you're saying Hindustan. That makes sense.
Yeah.
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 So that was just something a lot of people are not aware of, but I think it's a really interesting, like, historical viewpoint of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think most people have that misconception that he was going to India and then that's a hell of a wrong turn, ended up in North America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was trying to find a way, but I don't think he called us Indios because of India. I think he called us Indios because he saw us as a people of God.
Yeah. But so he murdered a lot of people, and he was really big on, like, he murdered a lot of babies.
Yes.
What was the deal with that?
I think that
No, with the baby thing, though. It was a really big thing that Cheyenne was telling me, my daughter recently. She was telling me the thing about how he murdered so many babies.
Yeah. I think that's just crowd control, you know? That's the way you control somebody when you go and want to conquer them. You go to their children, right? And they're women. So,
Yeah.
and there's even that saying that people are not conquered until the heart of their women are on the floor. And if I was to see my baby be hurt in any sort of way, my heart would, I don't know if I could pick myself up after that. So.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
Yeah.
with my children.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm overthinking it. I
Yeah.
guess it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't make sense, but I guess it
Yeah.
makes sense from.
I just can't.
From
And
a,
then-
from a civilized point of view, it doesn't make sense. It's hard to
Yeah.
wrap your mind around.
From a tyrant's point of view, but I don't even think Genghis Khan would like kill women and children. I don't think he would.
He made babies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he did some
Lots of babies.
arguably some more stuff maybe.
Yeah.
Well, he was into conquering. He was,
Mhm.
and he had at one point they said he had like a high percentage of the DNA on the planet was his.
Yeah, but I think I'm terrible at history, but I think part of his conquest was to spread. Like he wanted to expand. So
Yeah.
like killing women and children didn't make a whole lot of sense
No.
in that aspect.
Which I admire more than just killing to kill.
Yeah.
It's weird. Yeah. You mentioned identity, holding on to identity. I see that a lot with Native Americans, with the
Mhm.
different tribes, because of being impacted that much. I mean, you have to hold on to that because
Yeah.
that's all you have left. That's a huge part of who you are at that point.
Yep. And then like as I've stated, it didn't stop like boarding schools. You know, my mom was even in a boarding school. So people are like, oh, it happened such a long time ago. Let it go. And it really wasn't. When my mom was in a boarding school, she went from her home to a boarding school in South Dakota to be, I think it was a Catholic school. So, you know, it's not that far removed.
Yeah, I think I kind of misspoke earlier when I said that you guys kind of went through things, a couple hundred years ago. That's wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, that's when it started.
Yeah.
Or kind of in the midst of it. But yeah, you're right. Up until the mid 1900s, I mean, there was still a lot going on.
Yeah, even women were being, how do you say, like, they weren't allowed to have babies, and they were going in to see a doctor, and they would take away their ability to have a baby, in the 1970s, sterilized.
Sterilized.
Yes.
In the 1970s.
Yes, all the way up until the 1970s.
Was
They
that
weren't being.
that was probably done without their knowledge?
Yes, correct.
So they would go to a doctor.
Yep.
That was like on the reservation.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Because it wouldn't be like a doctor like in their town, like a normal town like Denver wouldn't do that,
Yeah.
but like a doctor that's there from the U.S. government or
Mhm.
something.
Yep.
Who are these
To-
doctors?
I don't know who they were exactly, but they do have documentation of women being sterilized all the way up until the 1970s by going and getting checked.
Intentionally,
Yes.
without their knowledge.
Yes.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And this was primarily, I'm repeating this, but I just want to make sure I got this right, on the reservations.
I believe it was on the reservations, yes. And it was specifically on Native women. Sterilization.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like premeditated. That's like murder without, I mean, obviously the women aren't pregnant, but still
Mhm.
you're stopping the chances of someone being born.
Yeah.
I found this article here. It says in the 1960s and 1970s, the Indian Health Service, the IHS, and collaborating physicians sustained a practice of performing sterilizations on Native American women, in many cases without the informed consent of their patients. In some cases, women were misled into believing that the sterilization procedure was reversible.
So who are these doctors?
I'll have to look it up. The IHS, the Indian Health
IHS,
Service.
yeah.
Well, they'll go in under that name. You know that. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of things with the government. They go in with they just throw the hashtag Native American thing on the name, and it's really just the government.
Well, that's basically where we go. We go to IHS to go get seen at any point in time on the res.
Yeah, this says it's that. Well, I mean, you know, this.
Mhm.
It sounds like the IHS is the
The central.
federally recognized American Indian and Alaska Natives healthcare organization, healthcare
So
system.
whose health care organization is that? That's the
government.
government's?
Yes, the federal government.
And who are the doctors typically? Are they Native Americans?
Sometimes it's doctors who come in to do their residency, you know, so they'll get a few years of experience and then they'll head out somewhere else. Sometimes it's people some doctors that are working with the government, like it says. So it, sometimes they're traveling. So it just really depends.
I see.
Yeah.
And
So it seems like it was just a practice put
Yeah.
into place by this federal healthcare system that was put into place on all reservations.
Yes.
wow. So maybe in the 60s and 70s there was more doctors that were not Native American. Are there more
Oh.
Native American doctors there now, or any?
When I go, I don't see a lot of Native American doctors.
Wow.
But yeah.
Well, let's encourage those natives. Come on, natives, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's get in there.
I mean, there are more natives becoming, lawyers and doctors and,
yeah.
but we are a lower population. So
You guys should push the U.S. government to say, hey, we want a percentage of this staff and this organization to be Native American.
I mean, I think that they do try to implement something like that, but it's really hard when there's no one to fill that position and you need someone. And so those are just kind of the barriers that we face, Just
Well, I mean, they give non-natives scholarships all the time.
yeah.
So give native scholarships for this,
Mm-hmm.
for that to be doctors.
I agree.
Yeah. Why not? I mean,
Mhm.
you got Manhattan for $1,000.
Right?
Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, Manhattan makes how much in revenue and taxes every year, they say? It's
Oh
like
my God.
crazy billions.
Wow.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
Or New York, I should say, not Manhattan. I'm sure it has its...
And even sometimes the states push tax on the reservation. Like for companies operating on the reservation, they'll come in and say, the state will be like, you owe us taxes even though it's federal Indian land. So they'll get like double tax from the tribe and then also through the state. I just think that's wild because the state has no authority on our lands.
Do natives pay taxes on their lands?
Depending on what you're doing. So food, typically, no tax.
Right. But that's even for us, even for
Yeah.
people not on a reservation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but like, it depends. Like, if you are operating a business on the res, you do pay a tax to the tribal government.
Yeah, because
But-
they have to maintain roads and
Yeah,
lights and stuff
But that
like
also that depends on which tribe. Like, there's over 570 federally recognized tribes, and
Sure.
not every tribe has something like implemented for taxes. So it really depends on if they have a tax code, if they have like IRA is different from a council.
Yeah. Or if they have a need
led.
for taxes.
Yes.
I know there's some tribes that have some really good casinos,
Yes.
and they kind of use that,
Mm-hmm.
to kind of build infrastructure and
Yes.
put back into their communities.
Yeah.
So that helps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let all the white people come in there, spend their money.
Yes.
and
That's the wish. Just kidding.
yeah, for sure. They should get out there and spend your money.
Mm-hmm.
So I know on that note, and we kind of talked about this before when I met you months ago. What is the general feeling of Native Americans towards? I think I understand the struggle that's still there with the U.S. government.
Yeah.
And that's always been there.
Mm-hmm.
But like towards just other people that are here living on their lands and maybe, getting a little snooty, time to time, or like just being disrespectful, or even people that are here, not being disrespectful, just living their life, and they were born here. They, it's maybe not their fault.
Yeah.
Of that history took place. I mean, how do Native Americans feel about the rest of us?
So, like I said, I cannot speak for everyone. Like, but I will speak through my point of view. And if you're here in the city and you're respectful, this is what it is now, right? We have to accept it. It is what it is. But like when it comes to cities on the outskirts of the reservations that are really prejudiced against natives, that's when there's a lot of issues. Like on the Wind River Reservation, there are 2 towns that are alongside the reservation, and actually Riverton is still, there's still a part of Riverton that's actually treaty land still. And I refuse to live in Riverton because of the amount of prejudice located within that area. It's all very, it's just not a happy place I would want to live as a Native American.
And where's that at? Riverton what?
Riverton, Wyoming.
Wyoming.
Hmm.
It's pretty prejudiced.
I believe so.
Yeah.
That's just speaking from personal experience, so I can't say yes for everyone. But when it even comes to like rental properties, there was a news article that was released a few days ago about a Black woman who was staying within an apartment complex in Riverton, and because she was one of 2 Black women living in that complex, they're trying to run her out because they said they only want 1 Black person living in that apartment complex.
They said that?
Yes.
Like
And
in 2023?
Yes.
Now?
There's an article I could send you.
Send it to me.
Okay.
That's nuts.
Yeah, someone sent it to me because I
Look
was like,
that up,
I
Mike.
don't ever want to live.
Riverton, Wyoming.
I could even bring it up
That-
here.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
We only want 1 Black person
Yeah.
living here.
Yes.
Huh.
Activist says Riverton woman evicted because other tenants plan to murder her because she was one of 2 Black people living there.
That's what she said?
That's the whole here's the article.
Let me see.
Okay.
But did they admit that? The people that did that?
It's been a whole thing, even with the landlords and everything. The landlords recognized that she was being harassed. Even one day she said that someone broke into her apartment and peed on her floor.
It says here that the property manager at the low-income apartment complex communicated to him, Jimmy Simmons, the activist, that the other tenants were planning to murder Groves, so she was forced to evict Groves from her apartment. So if the other people were planning on murdering her,
wouldn't they be arrested?
yeah, if they're plotting a murder.
But then that brings in the police and what do the police believe?
This is the same. I think it's the same article here. It says when she attempted to contact Riverton police about the matter, Grove said the police sided with the apartment's management.
Yep.
Well, yeah.
So this is the types of things that we're faced with as Natives, being located within such proximity to these towns. Where I would never live in Riverton. I will move to probably Landers at some point. But yeah, so
I just want to say too, we don't know the situation with that story. I mean, that's what she said. Yeah. So people who are listening, just look into that, see where that story goes.
Just read the article.
Yeah. The article, and it's going to court. So
yeah, truth will come out, right?
Yes.
Yeah. It doesn't sound like those people admitted that they were plotting a murder.
Yeah.
So.
But that's kind of weird that the landlord would say that. So.
Yeah, to say it like that, like we evicted her because the other people were plotting a murder.
Yeah.
That's the way I read it. I don't know if that's right.
Yeah.
That's
sounds
weird.
It sounds like somebody who got caught in their backtracking. I don't know. It sounds like a pretty wild situation though.
It's
so
like, well, that's
a lot of moving parts here.
That's just the way it is around here. So you just better leave before something happens.
Leave, yeah.
It's like, what?
Yeah.
Wait, what about all these people? They got like guns loaded, ready to kill me. What, you want to go talk to them?
Yeah.
No. That's the way it is around here.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't know the story. I'm
Yeah.
just reading that little clip.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, when it comes to areas like that, it's a little bit harder to be like, I'm cool with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just wish people would become a little bit more knowledgeable or educated on where they're at and where they're located and why they're located there and what it took for them taking from others to be there.
Yeah.
For.
Yeah. And to now have that privilege.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, privilege to not have what you have from someone else, but also the privilege to live in a country like America.
Mm-hmm.
America is one of the greatest countries on the planet. I mean, sure, there's a lot of things that our government does that I don't agree with especially when they interfere with other countries.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really think we should do as much of that as we do.
Yeah.
I think we should. Other people have other cultures that we cannot. You can't change other people and bend them to your will.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we do a lot of that as a country.
I think that's more for resources than anything.
Yeah, there's a lot of games being played on that. You're
Mm-hmm.
right. Yeah, for sure. It's all money.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not so much like our way and
Yeah.
our culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, that does get pushed when it's happening. But yes.
Yeah, they convert. Yeah, they're like, if we change these people, then
Yeah.
they'll be like us, and then they'll be an ally, and then we can just go in there when we want without a fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry,
That's okay.
coughing a little bit over here. But yeah, and that's another thing that I see from the Native Americans. I see that they love this country, and not just their country and their land. They also love America. I mean, they love. They fought for this country. A lot of Native Americans have fought for this country. A lot of Native Americans love the American culture. They,
population-wise, the Native American veterans have a higher practice of joining the Army and the Marines,
like per capita
than any other race, I guess.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I would have. I know a lot of black people and Hispanics join the military. A lot of Native Americans join the military. Yeah, a lot of them from the generation above. Well, I don't know how old you are. I'm 47.
Okay.
I know the generation above me. There was a lot of Native Americans, I think, in the Vietnam era. A lot of Native Americans.
Yep.
It says that Native Americans serve in the United States Armed Forces at 5 times the national average.
Wow.
Yeah.
So per capita, 5 times the national average. Yeah, that's not someone who hates America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely still our home.
Yeah. Yeah. And you guys have no reason to fight.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
To go overseas, I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, let me specify. To go overseas and fight, you guys really have no reason. You guys could sit on your reservation and say, you know what? This is your drama. You guys created it. Go.
It is.
go fight.
Yeah.
But
my dad was actually a Marine, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, this other article says, sorry to interrupt you, 19% of all Native Americans have served in the military.
What's the percentage?
Compared to 14% of all other ethnicities in the U.S.
Oh, so like the average of the other ethnicities.
Yeah.
Okay.
But your sample size, right, of the Native Americans is way smaller. So 19%.
Oh yeah.
Percentage. That's a huge difference.
Yeah, because you guys are only Native Americans are only about 2% of the U.S. population.
Yeah, it's very low.
Yeah, 2% of the U.S. population. How many? What's the percentage of white people that serve in the military? So, are you going to say something about your father was a Marine?
Oh yeah, he was a Marine. He didn't fight in any wars, but he was definitely the Marine type father.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The most common ethnicity among military is white, which makes up 51.6%.
Yeah, but what's the percentage per capita of white people that serve? Because if it's 19% of all Native Americans.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, just curious. That's I did not know that fact. That speaks volumes, right? You have a group of people that were had everything stolen from them, were decimated, murdered, raped, and still trying to coexist.
Yeah.
With everybody. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you find it yet? No.
No, I haven't found it yet. It's mostly just breaking the entirety of the military down by,
no worries.
by percentages.
No worries.
Yeah.
I mean, you already found that fact that the Native Americans are 5 times the national average, which is, and 19% of Native Americans serve in the military. That's huge.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. So your acting career.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about that yet.
It's kind of died down lately.
Really?
Especially having a baby.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You're busy, and then
Yes.
people are like, "Oh, she just had a baby. She's gonna be difficult to work with," or
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm like, I gotta bring my son. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Like we gotta hire a whole other staff.
I am a we now.
Just put them at craft services.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. But what films have you been in? You've been in some films. Right?
So I started off doing a play, Blackout Speaks, here in Denver, Colorado. And then from there I did a musical in LA, in Hollywood, called Sitting Bull's Last Waltz. And that was really fun. And then from there I traveled to Budapest and we filmed Jamestown. You can find that on PBS, I think. And then from Jamestown, I also filmed a few other like small movies. But I've always just been background character because there's so much freedom in being background, but you also get to travel. So I haven't been a main character other than Sitting Bull's Last Waltz. I played Sitting Bull's wife, seen by the nation. So.
And is that a play you said?
That's a musical.
Or a musical?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you guys do in the musical? I've never seen a Native American musical.
Yeah, it was really fun. Moses Brings Plenty played Sitting Bull. I played the wife, seen by the nation. And we basically just told the story of Sitting Bull, how he traveled with Annie Oakley and Buffalo Bill. He was a part of their show. And then how he went to Europe, and then how when he came back, he was accused of being part of the ghost shirt ceremony. And the U.S. government was scared of this ceremony that was reviving our ways, and opened fire and killed a lot of people that were practicing the ceremony during that time. And Sitting Bull was going to be taken and put into jail, and he was murdered at that point in time. And so it just tells his story throughout the musical.
And you do that with dance?
Dance and singing, and yeah, it wasn't a very big stage, but it was cool. The scene changes, and it was just really fun.
So what type of singing? Do they have the drum there then?
So I specifically, I assisted with this song that was supposed to help revive the buffalo. And it was a Lakota song that Moses taught me. And so I sang that song, but a lot of it is not all just singing. A lot of it is also acting and speaking to each other. And then some parts are singing.
And do they sing with the ceremonial drum when they do?
No, we didn't sing with a drum.
Okay.
We actually it was a grunge type of musical, and so we had guitars in the background playing.
Huh.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Native American grunge?
Kinda, yeah.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. It was really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. I wish I could do more of that, but
yeah,
it requires travel. It's kind of hard to travel now with my baby.
Yeah.
So.
Are you looking to do some more acting in the future?
I would love to. But again, I am an executive legal assistant, so it's hard to also request time off because there are, conflicts like, oh, you're taking time off to go get paid.
Yeah, don't pay me. I'll take some unpaid time off.
That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
So that's the dream. Like, if I can just imagine my life to what I want it to be, I would do some movies, make a lot of money, and then retire and then be with my baby and my husband. Like, that's the dream, but it's just what I want.
Yeah, Michael and I are we're doing this podcast hoping this kind of gets some steam and we can do something that's fun.
Yeah.
And kind of talk to interesting people like yourself and kind of take some time off and go travel too. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
That's the dream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Less work is the dream for everybody, though.
Absolutely,
Yes.
yeah.
That's the common dream, especially in America.
Well, with AI, just kidding.
Oh, man, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
We might all be pushed out. I'm just kidding. What are we going to do?
Yeah, I don't know, because I think you're going to have a lot of money to still be the guy who's balling when the AI is around, like to have the robots. You have to buy the robots. You have to buy the technology. You have to, if you want those luxuries, you're still going to have to pay a lot of money for it.
There's a lot of software too now that
Yep.
take administrative jobs away, which kind of makes me nervous.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for what you're doing now.
kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, at some point there's going to have to be a shift where we've removed so many jobs with AI that we either need to figure out how to create new jobs or subsidize people who can no longer find a job because we just have so many people that don't have jobs.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if robots can just serve everybody, then, but you're not going to get a robot for free.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to figure out a way to buy that $100,000 robot.
Are you going to get good at making robots or something?
Yeah.
Robots are going to be making robots.
Right?
Yeah.
They don't even need us to build themselves.
It's turning into that movie with Will Smith.
Oh, yeah, iRobot.
Oh,
yeah, iRobot.
Yeah, but even then, they were making the robots, the humans still. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of movies out there where the robots are making the robots.
Mhm.
I think Terminator's one of them, right?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Terminator.
I think any like
The bad ones are the
Yeah.
ones where the robots are building the robots.
yeah. Once you give robots thumbs, it's all over.
Yeah.
Noted.
Yeah, for sure, man. It's crazy. But yeah, so I'm just trying to think here. I know so I feel like we're going everywhere, and I apologize for that. But where are the I know you and I talked when we met months ago. You and I met and we talked a little bit, and we had talked about the treaties and the empty promises, and where is the accountability for those broken promises and the broken contracts. I mean, these are legal contracts between Native Americans and the U.S. government.
Which actually came into play before the Constitution, by the way.
Really?
Yes. A lot of treaties were made before the Constitution.
Wow. I guess I always pictured like we had a full running government. I mean, obviously I wasn't
Yeah.
around back then, but and I'm not a historian.
Yeah, neither. But that was always I mean, yeah, that was never explicitly told to me, but that was the picture in my head. Is
Mhm.
like, yeah, we had a
The
whole government, and we all
Constitution
sat
and
down
then-
and we all made terms.
Yeah.
Of course, it didn't go that way.
And that's why they called us merciless Indian savages in the Constitution.
Why?
I think because they wanted to get rid of us. They
Huh.
called us, if you look up, there's language in there that calls us merciless Indian savages.
Today? Still in the Constitution?
Yes,
Well, it
it's
didn't
still,
change.
yeah,
it
it
gets
didn't,
amended,
it
but
hasn't
it's
changed.
the original.
Oh,
language
the
is still
original
there.
has to stay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
right. You have amendments. So then it would still say certain things about how black people are like,
1/4 of a man, is that correct?
yeah, something like that.
Voting
1/2 or a
wise?
portion, a percentage.
Yeah.
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 That's crazy. Can't you make an amendment to take that shit out?
An amendment to subtract from the that would yeah.
Well, that's awful stuff, though. I don't know. I guess it's history. I guess knowing where you come from and having that perspective doesn't hurt either.
Yeah, I think it's like that's like a dangerous game when you say, okay, we can now remove things from the Constitution, even though like rightfully those things absolutely should be refused or removed. Then someone's going to take advantage of that and start removing other stuff.
No,
and
that's a
then
good point.
Our country topples or whatever.
Yeah, I was actually thinking that as I said that. I was like, oh, wait a minute. The slippery slope.
Yeah, it's like between a rock and a hard place kind of situation, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that stuff was so a lot of those, not all treaties, but
Not all.
There are
Some.
treaties and agreements that were made before the
Before
Constitution
the
was made.
Constitution, yes.
Sorry,
It's okay.
that sickness is still in me. No, not the sickness. The after effects. I'm in this studio
You're
with
still healing.
these people are like, get this guy
No, pneumonia is just fluid. You're fine. It's just junk in your lungs.
from viruses and
acid to us.
bacteria.
Yeah, that stuff's gone. Yeah.
That they said is gone. But yeah, so a lot of those treaties and what would they be called? Not just treaties. What else are they called? Are they called contracts or
They could be called contracts. So they're the law of the land now.
yeah.
That's what we consider them. The
And
law of the land.
I guess my question to that is then if we didn't have like the Constitution wasn't written, right? We didn't have a fully formed government. Who is making the treaties? Like an army general or what?
A lot of the times, things fell under the War Department. So the Department of War is typically who, I'm not sure if they negotiated or what it was exactly, but yeah.
Because they still, I think, had like groups of people that were still like the leaders from I think the 13 colonies still had their own leadership.
Yeah, it just hadn't been all unified into one.
Yeah.
Hadn't been
Government.
put to paper yet in a constitution.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at the beginning, but I didn't know you guys had treaties before the Constitution.
Yeah. If you want to look that up to make sure it's right, but I believe it is. I've read it before.
So how are the treaties holding up these days?
So,
Are they being honored?
no, not exactly. There are always loopholes that people are trying to get through to make sure that those treaties are not upheld. Recently, there was a ICWA case having to do with a Native child. Do you know what ICWA is?
No.
ICWA is the Indian Child Welfare Act, and it came to play in the 1950s. And it was to protect our children from being taken from our homes, because they were, like I said, taken from our homes, being put into non-native homes, being put into schools that were residential schools. And so they enacted that so that our kids could stay home with us. The whole purpose of residential schools were to kill the Indian, save the man. So kill our ways in order to preserve
The culture. Kill the culture.
Kill the culture to preserve our physical beings, right? Do you want to say anything?
Oh no, I looked this up. It says the first treaty was signed in 1778,
Yeah.
which is 9 years before the Constitution
Yeah.
was signed.
Yeah. So, thank you. Yeah. What was I saying?
We're talking about the Native American children and the schools.
So ICWA.
And the home.
The tribes created ICWA in order to protect our children from being taken and being adopted to outside homes. And so recently, this past few months ago, the Supreme Court found that ICWA was to be abided by, because the protection of our children is the ensurement of our future. But they were trying to say that it was a racial issue, like white people should be able to adopt Native kids. And that's neither here nor there. It's the fact that we are a political entity that makes us different in the viewpoint of the federal government, because we fall into a political entity. We're not just a race. And so we use our political standing in order to have that safety net for our children. And the way ICWA works is, first and foremost, if a child is to be taken from their home, first we want to see if there's any family members that could take that Indian child, so that they could still practice their culture. If not, then they see if someone within that tribe could take that child. If not the tribe, then some other tribe. They try to see if they could place it within an Indigenous cultural perspective, our family. And then if there's all other resources are taken, then the child could go to outside.
If there's no other option.
No other option, yes. And so that's what they're trying to fight. And it was one white couple who wanted to adopt a Navajo baby, or a Dene baby. And it was found that their claims were null. It was not based on a racial decision. It's based on our political standings as natives. So that was a big relief, because there's different ways to detract from our sovereignty as tribal nations. And so that was one way in which we've successfully implemented our sovereignty, meaning that we are sovereign nations located within the United States.
Absolutely. No, I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you guys should have that right.
Mm-hmm.
As the Native American people
Yeah.
to this land, you should have that right.
And there's also like gaming issues. So they're trying to say that there's another case. And the people who are bringing these cases
There's another case of what? Someone trying to adopt a...
No, there's another case having to do with gaming,
Mm-hmm.
and whether it should be legal for Native Americans, because
Why wouldn't it be?
they're saying it's based on race, but we are showing that we're a political entity, so we should be able to do what we want on our own lands.
You should be able to do whatever you want for
Wherever.
anything that exists in
Yeah.
the world.
Yeah,
If you want to have a professional skydiving team,
yeah,
what does it matter?
exactly.
And have under your own regulations.
But they are trying to
Yeah.
attack our sovereignty because they want to attack our resources.
Yeah.
Because the same law firm that represented the people doing ICWA is the same law firm that is representing the gaming case as well, and that's because they
Come a little
represent.
closer.
That's
Yeah.
because they represent oil and gas.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
So the
Gotcha.
idea is to create some sort of domino effect.
Yes.
Smaller cases lead to larger cases,
Yes.
lead to...
Yep.
Yeah,
Lead
from what
to-
I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, Native Americans the reservations, they follow like the federal laws.
Yeah.
And then they have their own jurisdiction.
Yes.
Within their own in their own reservations. And
Yes.
I've seen the reservation police.
Mhm.
They look like regular police officers. They have all
Yes.
the same stuff. They have they're going to cuff you up. They're going to put you in the back of the SUV. They're going to take you
Yes.
to a jail.
Mhm.
They have jails. So laws are in place.
Yeah.
So I don't see why, if Native Americans are going to do whatever they want to do, just let them do it as long as they're following laws.
Yeah.
What's the big deal?
Mm-hmm.
As long as they're not doing, something that's like crazy,
Yeah.
which I've never seen. I've been on reservations and I've never seen. Now there are some reservations that are in a bad state, but most reservations are, they have a government,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and they have infrastructure. They have businesses,
Mm-hmm.
schools,
Yes.
communities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. Some of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, man. I'd like to keep going, but I know you got to get going.
Yes, I do.
You put me on a time limit from the beginning, which I think we've passed a little bit. My apologies.
That's okay.
But thank you so much for coming.
Thanks.
I appreciate your time, and
Yeah.
I think everything you said is amazing stuff, and thank you for sharing it with us.
Yeah. Thanks for giving me the time. And I just want to say sorry to any of the elders that if I've ever overspoken. I want to apologize, and I just have respect for our elders, and so a lot of the times I feel like they should be in my spot.
For sure. For sure.
But I know a lot of the times they don't want to talk. So yeah, just thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I'm working on getting some elders in here too.
Great.
Some of them have a hard time, some of them with moving around
Yeah.
and traveling.
Mm-hmm.
And I really appreciate you saying that, because it shows your respect level for them,
Mm-hmm.
and you acknowledging them. Basically, if you misspoke about something, or if you, if you're hearing them speaking on their behalf,
Yeah.
it's not your intention.
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly.
that's really, it really shows your character. And I appreciate you saying that. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Sarah, for coming. Thank you.